One-on-one. African storytellers, the importance of cultural representation. Nomsa Philiso is the executive head programming at Multichoice Group. She is a business generalist with influential broadcast media expertise spanning over 26 years. We've seen the increasing significance of the creative economy in a post-pandemic world. The power of entertainment has seen people veer to their screens all through the lockdowns of the last 2 years. And then in all of this, a cast of characters led by the storytellers of Africa, indigenous, vibrant, and visionary they are. And leading that narrative is Nomsa Philiso, the executive head of programming at Multichoice. The Multichoice Group serves over 21 million households and has been telling stories for more than 30 years. Nomsa joins us to tell us more about African storytelling and the importance of cultural representation. Great to have you here with us, Nomsa, attending the Leading Women's Summit.
Thank you so much, Renuka. Thanks for having me.
Most welcome. So I mentioned the power of entertainment, and I'm sure over the last 2 years, for a lot of us, especially me, it was sort of an escapism in a way from the drama that was unfolding around us, in real life. But for Multichoice, how did all that work in your favor?
Look, it worked in our favor in a roundabout way, right? We saw our subscribers climb up, we saw audiences glued, but what was important for us as a company was that we were able to actually contribute to the positivity in terms of nation building and also the people that were glued to our screens, because it could have well been that people were going to be just very depressed and with no escape. So we created that platform for people to be able to go to and continue to tell our stories in a manner that was well received and quite appreciated. So yes, from a business point of view, it was positive, but I think that we made a huge social impact by continuing to be available for our audiences.
Now, personally, Nomsa, you've been a broadcaster for over 20 years. I mean, that's a very long time in the television business, and you're a complete veteran. But back when you started to today, if you can draw a high-level comparison, what is the ever-changing, evolving television landscape? What has it been like? And particularly if we can start with referencing, leveraging of technology and new innovations. How do you see this landscape, this changed landscape today and so transformed over the last 2 years?
Look, I think the big thing is technology has made sure that people have got more access, right? And more choices. Whereas previously, when we started, I mean, it was just the analog world and we were like, the kings of the town, but it's no longer like that now, right? So technology has come in, people have got streaming capabilities and access to that. So what we've been able to do as Multichoice was to remain in the lead, right? In terms of also being in that technology space, so if you look at some of the offers that we have, our DSTV Ultra in terms of the streaming services and also our Showmax offering. So we also very much in the forefront of the technology advancement because we believe strongly that people will consume content wherever it is, right? So the more available it is, the more they will consume it, irrespective of where it is.
That's true. And you've been a strong promoter at Multichoice of the power of African storytelling, as I mentioned earlier. And, Africa has such a strong oral tradition of storytelling. Storytelling is in our DNA. And in many ways, it's a sort of a soft power. And as you've seen last year, a lot of Africans winning important global literature prizes as well. There's a certain pedagogical influence for African storytelling. But tell us a little more about this concept that you'd like to center it on. How are you reviving some of that with local content? And how has it meant going back to the roots in some way?
It's a combination, right? Because there's a part of us that wants to be able to tell our history in the manner that we want to tell it so that it's not told by anyone else. And then there's also the part of social realism, wherein we recognize very strongly that people want to see themselves on the screens. People want something they can identify with, right? So in everything that we do, we try as far as possible to depict what is real and what is relatable. So when you look at how we're approaching local content storytelling, in that in the 50 countries that we have a presence, we ensure that in every country we tell the story with those nuances, with that language, things that matter to that particular region, right? It's important for us to uplift and acknowledge that so that people are validated in terms of their cultural importance.
That's true. And then, as you rightly said, with 54 countries on the continent, we have many Africas in one continent, and you do really need to reflect the diversity of the continent. But what kind of new narratives are you now committed to?
So some of the narratives that we are really committed to are the ones that we intentionally trying to say that will make the continent a better place, right? Mm-hmm. So the stories that we tell are the positive stories that, yes, they depict some of the lives that we live, but they also depict our capability and our potential. So if you look at how most of our stories, some of them are very rooted in a particular region, but we also have stories that we're exporting internationally. So, we have got now Renuka that was picked up in 87 countries. So it's not just about us being insular, but we're also able to export our stories. And then even when we've adapted international franchises, we tell them in our way, in a manner that actually still makes them want to be picked up. So Real Housewives of Durban was picked up by Bruno TV, and yes, it's an international franchise, but the way that we told it is our story, So it's always a balance for us.
The Real Housewives of Durban has such a huge following. I have a lot of friends who love watching it, and I also want to get hooked at some point. But you mentioned diversity, you mentioned inclusion. How are you ensuring the right representation in your content? And how do you specifically mandate to bring in that diversity and inclusion through your content?
So what we do it at different levels, right? So Multichoice is very intentional and deliberate about the specific groups that we need to empower, right? So in terms of female-led production houses, we're very deliberate about asking for those stories because we think there's a particular way in which females tell a story vis-a-vis, what we've always known. And we've seen them come through the fore in the past few years in a manner that, hits the ratings. And so we're very happy that we don't just find it, we make sure that we look for it. And
And I think females naturally come with great stories. They're more diverse and ethical, and so I think all of that reflects in your content as well. But I just want to move a little bit to this pipeline of African storytellers that you are creating, perhaps, and enabling consistent job creation and skills building. And what about mentorship? What does your pipeline of African storytellers look like?
So what we do as Multichoice, we've got different initiatives. One of them is the Multichoice Talent Factory. This is really where we deliberately take young filmmakers, we put them through a program of a 12-month program through different things. They learn script writing, they learn directing, they learn a whole lot of other skills, right? Because what we're saying is that we need to deliberately feed the system. And this is what our contribution is in that regard. So we're currently very strong in 14 countries where we're trying to develop this layer. And then we've got also the Innovation Fund, because we also recognize that there's a whole cohort of technologically savvy youngsters that just need a chance, right? So we're funding those ideas to see where this will land in terms of them starting to manage their business differently. So sometimes it's not really just about content, but it is just about where is technology taking us and where can we support and unearth the potential.
And the all-important question, I have to ask this, what are the challenges you still see? I mean, you're a woman at the top in media, but what are the challenges you still see for women in media and entertainment? Are they really coming up? And as you said, you were also encouraging young female talent.
So sometimes I think the challenge really becomes that all of us have got 24 hours in a day. Mm-hmm. And in that 24 hours, we have got to keep the lights on, so sometimes the temptation to just go with the mold because, you've got deadlines, you've got all of that. The temptation sometimes is great to actually forget to take a step back and say, okay, am I hitting the right numbers? Am I making the right impact? So, and I think sometimes it's a constant challenge for us. So you have to, as a leader, consciously say, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm trying to do, and measure yourself against that success or that goal that you set, because otherwise it can quickly seep through because, you're just wanting this content to come on air, and then sometimes you do tend to just, and then the other thing I think that truly and honestly, I find that sometimes women still have got an imposter syndrome. So they just don't always have the confidence. And I'm not in any way saying that people should be arrogant and know it all. But sometimes you almost need to draw it out of them to say you are able, you are capable, because sometimes they doubt themselves a lot. And it's good to have that voice that says, am I able to do this? But it's just that balance of how far does it go? So I still find that sometimes they do doubt themselves in terms of, the challenge that lies ahead. Sometimes they see it as too big a project. And until they do it, and then you just see them flourish. So it's just about believing and assuring the people to say that, you've got this.
Fantastic. You've got this. I think those are key operative words. Thank you so much, Nomsa. You've had more than two decades in the entertainment business, and it's great to hear some of your learnings. That's all we have time for. Please stay tuned for more interviews, insights, and the Forbes Women Africa Awards segment coming up at the end of the Leading Women Summit. Thank you.